Harkin, you won't believe this.
By now, you've probably heard that Lords of the Fallen is very much like the Souls games made by From Software. If you don't know anything about the Souls games, then maybe it's time for me to make a Souls Primer video, or for you to stop living under a rock. Either way, the comparison is valid. Lords of the Fallen controls almost identically to Demon Souls or Dark Souls, which isn't a bad thing, since those games are the best thing to happen to action RPGs since Diablo. Assuming, though, that you have no interest in such comparisons, Lords of the Fallen stands on its own as a very well-made action RPG, where you build your character's statistics off the corpses of your enemies. You can either build your characters as quick-moving, agile, critical strikers, or as high-defense, armored mammoths who smash demons with unwieldy weapons. The heavy set path seems to be the easy mode of the game, as most enemies will have little competition to your heavy hits and thick defenses. The bosses are a little uninspired and largely composed of big dudes that try to smack you with a few patterns of attacks in between. The first few bosses are actually the hardest ones, whereas most of the later bosses can be simply brute forced. The combat, like the Souls games, is excellent, with hugely satisfying hits that ragdoll your opponents and superb sound effects accompanying your deft strikes. The world interconnects and wraps back on itself in somewhat clever ways, but feels very small and mostly takes place in tight corridors and cramped environments. It feels about a third the size of what it should be, and the entire campaign takes place in two similar-looking areas.
The answer must
Worse
be
still,
somewhere in
loading
this tower.
screens break up different segments. Sometimes you can be walking through 3 different load screens in a row to work back to areas or items you want to re-examine. This wouldn't be that disappointing if games like Darksiders and Dark Souls hadn't already mastered this type of world building with far superior variety and artistic inspiration.
Why didn't I think of that?
This also reflects the length of the campaign, which I had wrapped up in just over 14 hours, relatively short for an action RPG of this type. The magic system in Lords is well lacking. Let's take Dark Souls 2 here. There are an abundance of different spells of all kinds, of all different elements, with different animations, unique properties, and a huge amount of room for different build types, including hybrid designs. In Lords, there are literally only 4 spells. There are 4 spells for each of the 3 classes, but those spells overlap each other, and some of them are nearly identical. The inventory system in Lords runs into the Mass Effect 1 syndrome of having a whole bunch of crap in a giant list, and since the items have damage numbers dependent on your stats, this can be a bit of an issue. For instance, if you have a weapon that's amazing but you need 2 more strength to use, you'll probably never even see it. I thought Dark Souls 2 did well with its grid-based interface that still worked well with a controller. None of these problems make Lords of the Fallen a bad game by any stretch. The combat is solid, and the story stays out of the way enough for you to explore and experiment as you please.
I'm so close.
It's not nearly as expansive or replayable as the Souls games, and has no multiplayer hooks, but it's a worthy addition to a genre that's already underrepresented.